it was the four of us, the three of us. Fun. Yeah, okay, I'm excited. I feel like I'm gonna do like a bunch of homework before I go though.
Yeah.
Like I don't wanna just be like showing up.
It looked like Sunday comment, like it was Tuesday or something like that. It looked like the program starts.
Well, I think there are like some pre-programs on Sunday. I think like the volunteer stuff is like Friday or Saturday. Like,
All these things
yeah.
are totally fine. You just want people.
But I need to get my head into all of it.
Don't necessarily expect it to work.
No, there's some.
Okay. All right, I'm ready.
You ready? All right.
Tony Tony is right a little bit behind, so he'll just join us as soon as he gets here.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
You got a spot saved right up front.
His name's there. All right. Good evening. So it is about 5:15, and it is June 9th, 2026, and this is the official meeting of the Traverse City Light and Power Board. Given that this will be our organizational meeting, I'll kick off the meeting for us to start off the election for the officers. But before we begin with that, why don't we go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
All right, Jen, do you mind taking roll?
Tobin.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
Ness.
Here.
Taylor. Bomer. Davila.
Here.
Heiberger.
Here.
Wonderful. All right, so why don't we start with nominations for the chairperson position, just to start us off. Are there any nominations for the position of chairperson for fiscal year 26-27?
I nominate Director Heiberger.
Is there... do I need a
Support.
Support, okay, wonderful. Is there any discussion?
Happy to do it.
Thank you. Oh, yes, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that, sir, I will hand it over to you to handle the second portion of the chair, of the positions.
Thanks, Brandy. So the next piece is for nominations for the vice chair.
I nominate Director Taylor.
Do we have any support for that?
I support that.
Thank you. I did check in with him in advance of this, knowing that he wasn't going to be around. He's interested in continuing that role. So, all right. Any other discussion or question? Okay. All those in favor? Great.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. I know you're watching. Probably not. Hopefully not. Okay, so then the last, one of the last organizational pieces is selecting the secretary to the board. That has historically been the executive director. So we should make that appointment as well. I don't anticipate there's any reason to not do that. So if there could be a motion for that approval, and then the second for Brandy to serve as the secretary to the board.
I nominate Brandy Eckren for secretary to the board.
Thank you.
Support.
Great.
I accept. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Any other comments or questions? Okay, back to the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, last thing from the organizational meeting. So ad hoc committees and establishing those to address specific projects and short-term organizational goals. One of the things that we're going to do a little differently is after this meeting, we'll follow up, Brandy will follow up with the current committee structure, availability on those committees for seats, anybody that was to shift around, with the intent then to, at our August meeting, since we're not meeting in July, to have that approved as opposed to our prior hemming and hawing at the meeting with that. So we're going to give that a shot. So look for that in your email in advance of the August meeting, and we'll proceed from there. So if you have any questions, definitely let Brandy or I know.
I have one question, which is for things like the HR committee or, some of these things. Is there any, for example, if you need something, do you just go to the previous committee members? Are you good with just going to the chair and vice chair? If those are not established in the interim?
So I can do both. I'm really comfortable doing it both ways. One of the things that Paul and I had kind of talked about in preparation for this meeting is that I can give you an idea of what the intended scope of discussion items for each of those committees, one of which is HR. There are a couple things that are coming up that are of note, and it could benefit from a committee conversation. So I'll be able to give you that. I'll also give you a good idea of the frequency. So for example, the HR committee meeting, assuming that there are no grievances, I only envision having one meeting this upcoming fiscal year to talk about a couple items. But if we didn't have the committee, I would be more than comfortable talking with the chair and vice chair too.
Yep.
Yep.
And just for the public record, that means for any staff grievances as well, they can go to the chair or vice chair in this
Yes.
interim period.
Absolutely. Yep.
100%. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. So with that, we are done with the organizational meeting. Do we need to close? We don't close that. Yeah. Okay. And can move on to any recusals for the evening. None. Okay. Then we're on to the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar.
Okay. And I get a motion to approve the consent calendar, or if there's anything that anyone would like to pull off before we get to that, actually. Anything anyone would like to remove from the consent calendar?
Nope.
Okay, there's no public for anyone to pull off from the consent calendar there, so back to the board for a motion on that.
I move to accept the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. All right, any other questions? Discussion? Great. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great. All right, moving right along. Next up, unfinished business, of which there is none. So new business, consideration of approving a consultant agreement with Lotus Energy and Sustainability.
All right, and Colin Heights, our climate and sustainability analyst, is actually going to do a presentation that will lead into actually supporting the consultant agreement ask.
All right. So as always, we start these presentations off with our mission and vision. As you'll hopefully see throughout these next few slides, this program is really born of and in service of the organization's mission and vision. More narrowly, the strategic priorities that it supports are that of community enrichment, customer experience, and environmental sustainability. So this program has 4 kind of overarching objectives that it's seeking to serve. The first is to establish outreach infrastructure. So this was something that as we reviewed the bids and talked with bidders, we really wanted to make sure they understood and were clear on. We want to make sure that as part of this program, we develop assets, strategies, and systems that long outlast the 12 months that this program might run. So we've really asked each of the bidders and the proposed selected bidder to make sure that their program proposal has a really deep infrastructure investigation and plan for how we can ensure that we have more sophisticated targeting strategies, contact databases, engagement processes, and means to maintain those over time. The program will engage key stakeholders. The obvious one is direct to the homeowners and business owners, but really importantly, and as I'll touch on in deeper detail throughout, it's also the kind of force multipliers in the community, the contractors and community-based organizations that are often the frontline folks that are helping homeowners and renters and business owners make these decisions that we're hoping to influence. It will develop outreach materials and channels. You'll see again throughout this presentation that it isn't exclusively a collateral or content program. There is a lot of foundational work, as I just touched on, and engagement processes, but it does have a good amount of just physical collateral as a part of the program. And then ultimately, we are aiming to create those structures that support long-term effectiveness, that really build our outreach efficacy over time and allow us to maintain and grow our success in our engagement practices. So the bidder that we are proposing to move forward with is an organization called Lotus Engineering Sustainability, based out of Denver, Colorado. They presented a really, really interesting program proposal, and as you can see here, if you scan through some of the project experience, they have a lot of technical expertise directly in this decarbonization and electrification and energy efficiency space, both as an organization and on the specific project team. For instance, they do have, as part of this project team, a former intervener. She was an intervener for 20 years, working on intervening on investor-owned utility efficiency and electrification programs. So she has a really deep technical understanding of our kind of program side of things. And then within their organization, they just have really, really directly applicable stakeholder engagement and outreach programs that they've done recently. As you can see there, the three that I've highlighted, they ran an under-resourced buildings engagement study in the city of Fort Collins. They led all of the communications and design for the city of Cleveland's climate action plan. And then they did a full impact study for the Colorado Public Utilities Commission on investor-owned utility rate design and policies and all of those things, and it's specifically how they pertain to their effects on electrification and distributed energy resource adoption in the state. So again, just really highlighting they have a really, really deep technical understanding of the space that we're talking about. And then the other part of the proposal that was really, really exciting, they seemed to understand very well that we were looking for some local engagement and some local leadership. And so their program proposal was actually a joint proposal with SEEDS. They came out here in person prior to bidding, met with SEEDS, developed this program together. So SEEDS will provide, where Lotus is very technically competent and technically proficient, SEEDS will provide a lot of local expertise, and they'll also be able to provide some on-the-ground implementation support where we might need it. We envision staff being a lot of the on-the-ground, in-person event holders, but SEEDS is going to be able to offer implementation staff. They also have a very deep and long history in the schools, which this program has a school component to it. So really cool combination of focuses of national expertise and local understanding. So the program approach and work plan, sort of from a high level here, is kind of phased into 3 chunks. They're not directly staggering. Some of them overlap in pieces. And this was a little bit iterative from their initial proposal. It's largely the same, but after the discussions and the clarification from staff that we really wanted to make sure that we did a good, deep inventory of our current infrastructure, our current capacities and capabilities, they kind of front-loaded a bit more work into that piece to make sure that they understood exactly where we were and how we could get to that long-term success. So in that first phase, there's a deep inventory of our infrastructure, our gaps, our capacities, our capabilities. They will identify those key stakeholders and equity priority communities that we'd like to target, and then do some initial testing of their engagement strategies with those key stakeholders and priority communities. Phase 2 is really where a lot of the deployment of those engagement activities and then deep relationship building with contractors, workforce development folks, community-based organizations happens, collect a lot of insights, and then the final phase, phase 3, is where they will deliver the full memo of recommendations, final collateral, and all of that good stuff. Did want to take a moment to dive into a few of the key components and deliverables throughout this program. I've really been harping on this already, so I'll spare you a little bit. But they did really, after our initial meeting with them, come back with a really, really, really strong proposal as to how that they can build that capacity understanding at the beginning and understand what we are capable of, both currently and maybe in the future, to make sure that they're developing programs that we are able to maintain after they're gone in 12 months. And provide us that maintenance framework. So not only are they going to inform how they design the program, they're going to provide us with explicit frameworks on how we can maintain moving forward. This was a part of their proposal that I thought really exemplified how deep of a technical understanding they have of this space of EWR programs, electrification programs. This part, the stakeholders identified on this slide, this was not super iterative. They came with their initial bid with a really heavy focus on making sure that they get feedback from contractors, community-based organizations, and workforce partners. They specifically called out NMC on the latter part of that, both on the front end and in the collateral design piece. So they proposed holding focus groups, one-on-one informational interviews, lunch and learn sessions with the contractors and CBOs and workforce groups to really understand how our programs currently serve them, where we're missing, what we can do to better support them. And again, I just really thought that showed a deep understanding of how important those groups are in us being successful with our electrification and our decarbonization strategies. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that. And again, all of those groups really serve as force multipliers for us out there doing the day-to-day work and interfacing with homeowners and business owners and renters when they're making these decisions. There is a direct outreach and communications component. So they'll develop outreach materials for us in addition to the strategies and systems, as well as a distribution plan to ensure that we're not just handed all this really pretty collateral that we can't get out in front of the people that we need to get it out in front of. And they will host a series of workshops and train us to host a series of workshops on just general education sessions on beneficial electrification, energy efficiency, and decarbonization. The school and youth program, again, an original part of their program proposal, but another thing that we were really excited about making sure was a piece of this program as a whole. They have proposed building a youth engagement toolkit. So it's going to be a training kit that will train TCLP on how we can best implement these in-school programs, while also giving TCLP the groundwork to be able to train community ambassadors if we want to be able to send out SEEDS folks, for instance, to do some school engagement or some summer program engagement with youth programming. Their focus is going to be on 4th and 5th grade pretty specifically because it aligns with the state of Michigan's next generation science standards. So they, again, really a deep understanding of where in the school curriculum that will best fit for the state, and a great opportunity for us to really enhance our visibility and our time spent with schools and with the youth. And then the kind of direct to homeowner, direct to renter, to business owner program that I really wanted to highlight here is an ambassador program. Similar to that school engagement toolkit, they proposed developing an ambassador toolkit, which gives us the tools to be able to do a lot of TCLP ambassador training, so maybe folks that have participated in programs in the past and can be great peer-to-peer support systems, talk about their experiences, provide us feedback on how the program worked and what pieces can maybe be improved. And then a similar kind of parallel toolkit specifically for training CBOs, community-based organizations, to be able to be ambassadors of our programs, of our initiatives, and try to drive participation through that avenue. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question about the school programs.
Sure.
So do you have in mind certain schools you would target? Because not all of the schools are within the TCLP service area. Are you looking at going outside the service area?
I don't think that we would be restricted by staying within our service territory,
Okay.
because there are kids that are going to be in schools outside of our service territory that live inside the
Yep.
service territory. And ultimately, especially on the school and youth engagement side of things, that is kind of much more of a decarbonization, electrification, energy efficiency, general literacy effort than it is. I don't expect a lot of 4th graders to submit rebate applications for us. So it's
never
kind
know.
of a,
They're pretty savvy if you give them a phone.
yeah.
Maybe some
So
e-bikes.
I think of that kind of as a community literacy initiative, and I don't think we would need to be bound
Okay.
by service territory.
So that being said, will sort of the certain community-based organizations be called out? You mentioned NMC, but that to me felt more like a working partner.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be specific engagement opportunities with some of the bigger entities like the City of Traverse City and TCAPS and, specific to those organizations as a way for TCLP to engage with them? Or is it less specific than that?
No, it could be that specific. The Lotus proposal identified a handful of community-based organizations from their research that they thought might be good partners. And to clarify the NMC piece, they also had a focus of this program on workforce development and ensuring that NMC is offering courses and trainings that are applicable to the future of the energy industry. So they did identify a handful of community-based organizations that they think might be good fits for engagement, but in no way are we pigeonholed to the ones that they proposed initially. There's going to be an engagement process on the front end to understand who might be best suited or who might be most interested or have the capacity to want to engage and continue engagement with us and go from there.
And then if you remember, in our climate action plan, we specifically kind of talked about a swath of agencies that fit a particular
Yep.
profile.
Yep.
And so this program is just supporting that climate action plan vision.
Yeah. Good. I actually have another question, unless
Please.
someone else has another one. So will this take into account anything having to do with the future Innovation Sustainability Campus?
I hadn't envisioned that.
No?
Yeah, that doesn't, but I can let me noodle through that. It just hadn't crossed my mind. I had been so focused on our climate goals of the education and development, especially with the K-12 and our programs. That was something that's a part of our strategic plan,
Yep.
as well as part of that climate action plan, and this was going to help us get over the finish line with that as we're midway in the climate action plan. I hadn't even thought about the opportunity with the Innovation Campus, but just as I'm reflecting on it right now, I can definitely see some opportunities based on some of the high-level visioning we've been talking about
Right.
with respects to that.
Yeah, it might be good to get their take on that.
Absolutely, because I know we've talked about, again, visioning in terms of having a good space for education.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
and just to be clear, this is a tentative scope, so there's definitely room to fit things in as we go through this phase one and refine the scope and the project plan, if we think that might be a worthwhile endeavor.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
I have a question about the ambassador program,
Sure.
which I think is really clever because that's crucial. That's like the thing in here that's really exciting. So I'm curious, like, how many ambassadors are they going to be given opportunities to like go and present on our behalf to their communities? Are they like, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the exciting thing about them proposing this as developing a toolkit is that we are not bound by what the budget or time frame of this relationship might be in terms of how large we want to grow that, right? They're going to help us develop what this ambassador program might look like, but then it's going to be TCLP staff that is out there, getting community ambassadors on board and training them. So this is something that I think can grow as we kind of understand what works. As we develop that toolkit, we can grow it as we see fit. I don't think, a firm number of how many ambassadors we're envisioning or what exactly, if they're going to be hosting community workshops and doing presentations or if it's going to be, yard signs and you can come ask questions on these dates, that sort of a thing. I think that those finer details of it are still to be worked out. But it was just an understanding that we need more peer-to-peer ambassadorship and peer-to-peer promotion of the programs. We need to do a better job of telling success stories of folks that have participated in the programs. So maybe kind of a squishy answer, but I think that we can scale it as much as we see the benefit from it once we kind of go through the process of developing that and designing that program.
Makes sense.
Anything else? All right, there is a suggested motion on page 33 of the packet.
I move that the Light and Power Board authorizes the executive director to execute a contract with Lotus Engineering and Sustainability in the amount of $120,786, more or less, subject to review as to substance by the executive director and as to form by general counsel.
Support.
No public for comment there. Back to the board for any other discussion or questions.
this seems like a great project, so thank you for bringing it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks, Colin. All right, next up, consideration of approving replacement and expansion of the TCEV charging network at Clinch Park and Hall Street. First timer Liz, welcome.
Jake, what was the icon you hit?
Pretty easy. Okay, so this presentation outlines the proposed EV charger upgrades at Clinch Park and Hall Street. The focus is on improving infrastructure to better support current and future EV demands. So just tying it in, it directly supports it's not working. There it goes. All right. Directly supports the mission and vision to provide reliable, innovative, sustainable energy solutions. It also reinforces our strategic plan and climate action plan by strengthening EV infrastructure and enabling transportation electrification. Overview here. We're going to be replacing unreliable equipment with more dependable fast charging to strengthen the network performance. The fast chargers at both sites expand access and support, increasing EV adoption and demand. So you can see some of these items here. As far as impact and insights, they're going to improve charger reliability and availability, delivering more consistent charging experience at these locations. And needless to say, this project also enhances, it's a very high visibility area. Even as a newcomer, I know these locations. So in these high visibility downtown locations, it'll be benefiting the residents and visitors while advancing EV adoption. So we'll step through each of these here. Clinch Park, we can see that on the map here. And this is the existing infrastructure, which is 4 level 2 ports and 2 DC fast chargers. They've been experiencing reliability issues, impacting performance and user experience. So the proposed here is to increase the fast charging capabilities to 4 DC fast chargers. The new charge point fast chargers will provide up to 80 kilowatts per unit, so improving the speed there and efficiency. If you do just have one vehicle using, that's up to 160 kilowatts, so I wanted to call that out there. So that is Clinch Park. There'll be 2 remaining level 2 charge ports there. So that's Clinch. We'll move on to Hall Street. Again, another high-use location that plays a key role in the charging network. Currently, 2 DC fast chargers and 4 level 2 chargers here. The existing infrastructure here particularly limits the fast charging availability and the overall system reliability. So here's the new map of the proposed chargers. This is again 4 DC fast chargers, expanding capacity, improving throughput, and this is going to better support the EV demand going forward. We're also creating an additional accessible space at this location. So that's kind of the scope. And then we'll get into the financials here. You can see Clinch Park up there at the top, approximately $243,000. You guys are familiar with the GM agreement, which should supplement $140,000 there. And then Hall Street, $288,000 approximately, for a total project request of $585,000, and some contingency in there. A little side note on Hall Street, we did apply for an EAGLE grant. It's currently on hold, but if that was to be awarded, that's approximately cover about $180,000. And the last piece here, schedule, timeline, you can kind of see some of the key milestones here laid out, mainly starting with procurement. Those are going to be, we're going to start procurement and on RFP for the installation portion here in the coming weeks. Start some pre-construction activities starting in August, and then major construction activity would start later in summer, start of fall, with commissioning being later in October. And the goal there is really to avoid the peak summer usage of those key critical chargers. So, and get those all up and running before winter comes around. So that's scope, schedule, and budget for the proposed upgrades here. I'm happy to answer any questions, though.
How old is the equipment being replaced?
I'm going to have to help me. 5 years old.
And do we estimate how long the new stations will last or be usable? Or?
I'm having to call on my lifeline a little bit here.
About 10 minutes. Do they typically like fail at that point, or are they superseded by new technology? Or sorry,
No, it's good.
This isn't necessarily like equipment failure. It's been issues we've been having from the beginning. A lot of it is more on the networking side than it is the equipment side itself. So really our partnership with ChargePoint is one that we vetted for quite some time and realized that they have the support that Blink in the past could not offer to us. So that's really the reason for the change.
Plus, there seems to be a lot of user confidence with ChargePoint equipment as opposed to like Blink or any other. So that kind of helped influence the decision to transition to.
Do we have a sense of like cost recuperation? Because part of this is we're able to sell electricity to pay for these. I think you may be hearing like it's a big ticket item, and so like to have to replace it after 5 years is feeling a little tough for me, at least.
So with the new chargers and like the GM agreement that we have in place at those sites, we figured a little under 8 years for that. You know, it's hard to say, depends on usage, of course, but that's what we utilize from the existing usage at our chargers right now, our fast chargers. So of course, if that usage grows quite a bit, then it'll be much faster, but that's kind of our estimate right now.
Still kind of a maybe 8 years ROI on it.
Yeah, hopefully faster. I mean,
That's helpful. Yeah.
That's the point, is to get more usage and reliability out of these, so.
Right, because that assumption is on the current level of reliability, which has had issues where charging
Exactly.
wasn't even accessible.
right.
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
This is just sort of a logistical question. So if someone's parked at Clinch Park during, the time of year when everyone is coveting a place to park at Clinch Park, is there a mechanism where if the car that they've plugged in has become fully charged, it's pretty clear to the parking official ticket person that they would ticket that car if they're sitting there with it plugged in and it's not charging anymore?
I guess the answer is yes and no. The parking services do not realize when it's done charging, and that's not kind of part of their job, but there is a idle fee charge, so they are getting charged for sitting there and not charging. So we try to entice people, once their vehicle is fully charged, to move it to another location, or you're going to have to pay while you're sitting there. If a vehicle's there and it's not plugged in or plugged in improperly, which we've seen many times, then that's where parking services would step in on that portion.
Okay.
I'm guessing the answer is yes to my next question, but just on the Blink relationship, like, did they have any guarantee, or like, is there any cost recuperation there that we could pursue? Because that's
Not at this point,
Yeah.
no. I mean, we had a 1-year warranty with them and then
Right.
extended it to 5, and we're beyond that now.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I think that having functioning chargers sends the exact message that we want. Like, hey, it's all happening here and it's happening really well, and you're missing out if you're not driving an EV, is pretty big.
Yeah,
Plus,
absolutely.
if you recall, like a year and a half ago, I think we were at a decision point. I know we talked about this at the Sustainable Ad Hoc Committee, where we needed to replace those chargers. Having this partnership with ChargePoint has been great, because now we have some money that can kind of help with that, enable that. And then obviously, if we can get some more liquidity that helps with the grant, that just is, that it just goes up. But I did not, and I apologize, maybe I should have put more of the journey history in the memo of where we were and where we've been going with this journey, because it has probably cost us more to have just chargers just sitting there. And I guess I made a wrong assumption as far as like the clarity of detail. So that's, as a matter of fact, the staff wanted to put more detail in the memo. I says, we probably don't need to cover that. But that's my error.
Please don't interpret these
Oh,
questions
okay.
as feedback. I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a couple questions. One, for the accessible space on Hall Street, is there a difference in that charger for that space in terms of someone being able to use it for that access
No.
side of things?
Yeah, it's just the space itself. So all of our chargers are going to be ADA compliant.
Great,
This one is specifically handicap compliant.
perfect.
And there's no space to do an ADA space at Clinch?
So it will be ADA, just not handicap, but we are not in control of the Clinch parking lot.
Oh, okay.
So that would have to go through parking services. We are in control of the Hall
Right.
Street parking lot, yes.
Got it.
Perfect. I think I just want to put emphasis on like how great this is in terms of the upgrade to fast charging. I think that's pushing ahead. I guess this isn't a question. This is just a hype you up. Good job. Because I think that is the direction, in terms of EV experience, and particularly because these parking spaces are in high demand areas, to encourage that sort of turnaround of, you're going to use this resource and then, go on to having fun quickly, easily, and, with the benefit of, for all, with that. So I think that's great. And then one minor housekeeping thing, as we get to the point of the motion, The suggested motion does not include the contingency. So just when we get to that point, make sure you're using the 585 figure, not the 532 that is in the suggested motion. All right, any other questions? Again, no public to pull anything else off there, so then we do have that suggested motion with the addendum or correction to that I noted.
Can we pull up the exact number?
It's,
Just so,
I can make the
'cause-
motion. We have it.
oh, do you have it? Okay.
Yeah.
With the
I,
contingency amount.
yeah, I move that the Light and Power Board authorizes the executive director to execute agreements necessary for the replacement and expansion of the EV charging network at Clinch Park and Hall Street in the amount of $585,504.57, more or less, subject to review as to substance by the executive director and as to form by general counsel.
Support.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It's great. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great job, Liz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice work.
See you next time. Okay, Tony, old hat. Consideration of approving the Barney Road 69 kilovolt relocation project.
Okay. All right, looks like we got it. As a, what was it, to hit to go to the next one? Okay, perfect. Weird. All right, that's odd, but we got it. So this is a Barney Road 69 kilovolt relocation project. So good job, Paul, on pronunciation and of that KV. So our mission and vision, this project is really going to promote our affordability, reliability, and sustainability components of our mission and vision. And I think it'll be pretty obvious once we get through the presentation. So starting off with the scope, just the diagram up there, the green lines, which are kind of your top left and your top right, are the existing lines that nothing's being done on. That red little U-shaped is where the line currently is that will be removed, and the little blue piece that goes left to right will be where the new relocated line is at, which will be overbuilt over top of a Cherryland electric distribution line. So there is already an existing power line there. So a little bit on the routing. So this line was originally built in 1959. And at that time, the feed actually came from the south, so this little kind of jog that we do made more sense. But in 2009, we actually built Gray Road Substation, which is just north of here. So now we have this section of line where we go south, and then we have to go immediately back north. So today doesn't really make sense, but when it was built, that's why. And we actually most recently rebuilt this line in 2015. So it's about a little over 10 years old now. So the really the need to do this is because Wolverine is, and actually if you look in the, I'll point this out, there's a substation at the intersection of Gray Road and Barney Road there. That's a Cherryland electric substation. So Wolverine is the one who manages all the substation and transmission assets for Cherryland Electric, and they're actually looking at rebuilding that substation. The property they had was too small, so they purchased this property, which is a picture there on the screen. And because the line, it's kind of tight between the line and the road, they actually want to build in the field side of the line. So our physical line is actually on that field side, so on the further away line there. As you can clearly see there's no way for their lines to cross our lines as currently constructed. So we looked at a couple different solutions. The one that we're proposing is the one that we would like to go forward with, but another option was replace some of these poles with taller poles. We could have kind of gone over top of Wolverine and had them tap. But we just looked at some of the benefits of actually just relocating the line that we'll go over later. It just made more sense to do that since we're going to be spending about 50% of this project proposed cost just to raise our lines and keep it where it is today. And a little keynote here is this joint line here where we're attached to is owned by Wolverine, so we do have to do something. So we're not able to just leave the line there and have them figure it out. So the benefits are going to be enhancing operational excellence. So because the line is going to be shorter, we're going to have less losses. So that'll be good for both environmentally, but then also operationally less loss cost. Reduce vegetation maintenance costs. As you see, it's much shorter, and also it goes through what's essentially now kind of empty fields. The line right now goes through a pretty wooded area. Like it's on the property line, so it's not dense, but there's a lot of very mature pine trees along right underneath the whole line segment. It'll help be easier to access because it's only going to be about 100 feet or so off the edge of the road versus in the fields that are multiple over almost 900 feet off the road in places, and reduced future replacement costs, obviously, because there's less poles and wires to replace. So the customer satisfaction portion here, lower service costs because we'll have less facilities to maintain and less losses, so that will help drive rates down. And then reduce chance of vegetation-caused outages. And finally, environmental sustainability, because the line is so new, we're going to be able to reuse the poles and a lot of the hardware, and we're going to assess the wire. Hopefully, I'll be able to reuse the wire as well, and so we basically have almost no new material that we'll have to use for this. So that's a good win for both the cost and the environmental thing of poles are not great for landfills, as we know they're treated. Proposed schedule, so obviously today we're here for the project authorization. July, we would like to award an engineering bid, and the reason why we're doing this is because the software required to design a line such as this is something that we don't have a license to, so it's more economical for the few times that we actually have to do transmission line design to actually hire an outside contractor to do that. And then January, we're proposing awarding the construction contract and a completion of construction around the April 2027 timeframe, and hopefully be back here next June for project closeout. In the budget, it's pretty high level, but based on just some past experiences, as well as consulting some with Wolverine, they had some more updated figures that they were able to provide us. So I feel fairly confident with this budget that we'll be able to meet that. And if anyone had any questions on this project, happy to answer those.
Seems like a steal. All right, there's that suggested motion.
I can make the motion. I move that the Light and Power Board authorizes staff to proceed with the Barney Road 69 kV relocation project, including approving project costs up to $200,000 more or less, subject to review as to substance by the executive director and as to form by general counsel.
Support.
Great. No random public have showed up between the last motion, so back to the board for any other comments or questions. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tony. You don't have to go very far for speaking of closeouts
Nope.
in the future, MDOT 3 Mile and Munson relocation project.
Yes, so just a reminder for the board members, some here and some weren't here. This project was at the intersection of Munson and 3 Mile Road. MDOT was adding another turn lane to turn on to 3 Mile Road. And because of that, they had to extend the roadway to the north, which is where our previous overhead line was located. So we had to, because we're in there right away, we do have to relocate those facilities. And because it's, unfortunately, unlike past projects in the recent history, this is outside the city limits, so MDOT does not reimburse for those costs, so we did have to borne all those costs. And this really was a great benefit, really, though, for us operationally. We removed a lot of redundant facilities. Actually, all the if you've driven past it, you'll see our overhead lines are gone from Culver's all the way to basically the entrance of the state park there. So really beautification of the area, as well as we removed a bunch of poles that now won't be there to get hit by cars. And our transformers we have got an easement from the DNR, so the transformers are approximately 20 or 30 foot off from the road, so they're pretty far out of the distance. So we should be good on that aspect. As you look at the all internal staff, so that was another benefit of this. So we're able to put our internal staff to use, and I know they always take great pride in being able to work on these types of projects and show that, I helped build this and improve the community overall. And then just looking at quick summary of the budget there, we were about 5,100 underneath the budget. Plus an additional 30,000 in contingency that we didn't have to use, so we came out really good on this one. Some lessons learned, just like with the previous one, we had some scheduling dependencies that we were able to adjust to, especially from the last MDOT project. We were kind of used to that, so to speak, so we really stayed on top of it and made sure that we had all of our stuff ready to go, so we could sequence it appropriately and get the project done on time. And then this was a really good benefit for the internal workforce as well, just having the flexibility of not relying on a contractor of when they can show up. We were able to respond to some opportunities, such as when Elmer's actually closed the road, we actually coordinated and pulled the poles, so that saved us some money on traffic control that we didn't have to use.
Awesome.
So all in all, it was a good project. Happy to answer any questions or anything if anyone has anything.
Fun. Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tony. All right, as we wrap up, anything from the board? Okay, still no public. Anything else, Brandy?
I don't have anything.
All right, so no meeting in July, so we'll see you in August.
Can I just say one thing?
Oh, one thing.
Over on the table, everybody, honey baked ham or turkey or California veggie sandwiches, please grab one or two. I don't want to take them back to Light and Power. So help
Noted.
yourself
Great.
on your way out.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay.
All right, we're adjourned.